Welcome to the present moment. Welcome to the Darla Beam Leadership and Coaching Podcast.
Hi there, welcome. I'm Darla Beam, and this is an episode of DB Leadership where we are going to be talking about relationships and what they mean to us and building relationships. I want to start this first episode with reading a quote from one of my favorite spiritual teachers, Thich Nhat Hanh. He is a Vietnamese Buddhist who now lives in France because he was exiled from his country for protesting the war many, many years ago. He founded a monastery called Plum Village, and he's considered to be a great spiritual teacher of our time. And as I was sort of thinking about this episode and this month where we're going to be talking about relationships every week, this is the quote that I read in his book, Living Buddha, Living Christ. He says, if we create true harmony within ourselves, we will know how to deal with family, friends, and society. So I love this quote because when I think about relationships, and especially the word build relationships, I think about out there. I think that relationships are something outside of me, something that I need to go and do. And this quote really points us back to ourselves and creating, oh, hello, Poe. There he is. Poor little shaved Poe. Creating harmony within ourselves. And then he's sort of pointing to that the rest will automatically come. How to deal with family, friends, and also with society. That will come naturally. And it's so true, right? Like if I look out there and I see something in my relationship that I don't like, it might be a relationship with a coworker or with a child. If I say, oh, she's not putting on her boots fast enough, or he's not getting that project done in the way that I want him to, there's a high probability that there's something going on inside of me where I'm not moving quick enough, where I'm not getting a project done to my own expectations. Think about that for a second. How many times has that happened where it was actually not about the thing that we thought it was about? I'm frustrated about the boots. Really, it took me 30 minutes to get out of the house this morning. And it's really just a projection of what's inside. This is what's called a blind spot, right? A blind spot. Something that I can't see. It's like I'm driving down the highway of life and I can see ahead, I can see my rearview mirror, I can see around me, but I can't always see that blind spot. I have to turn and kind of look over my shoulder, but also be mindful of where I'm going. And I love blind spots because there's such an opportunity for us to develop and grow. And that's my favorite thing to do. Grow and develop and transform and work with others in doing the same. I have a really good friend who's going through a really, really tough time. And her blind spot is that she can't see her blind spots in the moment. She really and truly believes that her suffering is created outside of herself. That everything that's happening to her is because someone's doing it to her. And by the way, I'm clear that because I see that in her, it's also in me in some way. So I'll just tell myself right from the beginning. And so I have such compassion, right? I have such compassion for this situation because I often find myself in the situation where I just can't seem to see it. And so I love this because it's like when I can practice this with myself and give myself compassion, I can practice it with others, and that's building the relationships, right? What I give to myself first, stopping and sort of forgiving myself and maybe asking others to kind of point me to where my blind spots are, which is what she and I have done. We have an agreement to do that with each other. You know, there's another part to this. when we look within, there's so often, as we're talking about transformation, we're so often pointing towards something I need to do and change within myself, right? Something in my brain, which is wonderful. And there are 3 parts to who I am: mind, body, and heart, right? Or spirit, however you prefer to call it. And so many of us on this planet are really tied into and stuck kind of in our minds. We educate ourselves, we go to school, we read books, and we're constantly sort of exercising this muscle right here. There are some of us who are also exercising or choosing to work our bodies, right? And just connect with our bodies, or just work our bodies, maybe connecting, maybe not. And then we've got this other piece, this heart, this part of us that has so much wisdom. I was recently reading in Deepak Chopra's You Can Heal Yourself, or Heal Yourself, I think is what his book is called. He wrote it with a scientist, and he's a medical doctor. He was talking about cutting edge research has shown that our guts and our hearts, one has more neurotransmitters than our brains, and the other, our heart, has almost as many as our minds. And so there's actually a physical and scientific reason to listen to our hearts and kind of incorporate our heart, our mind, and our whole body. And I think what happens when we're building relationships is we look at one or the other, or maybe 2 of the 3, but it's really about balance and balancing all 3 of those things. So for example, so what does that mean, Darla? Right? So it's like when I'm thinking about building relationships and I'm thinking about myself, right? And I have this blind spot. Okay, great. Well, what do I do with it? Okay, well, I can do the work in my mind. What am I doing to connect with my body and with my heart? How am I working through that situation? I'm really good at reading books. I'll just tell myself here. I'm really good at reading books, okay? And talking about it with other people, and of course talking about it here with you guys. And one thing that I forget to do is I forget to journal. I forget to kind of drop into my heart. I forget to drop into kind of that, what's that called when you journal without thinking? It's like, there's a word for it. It'll come to me after this video. And you just sit and you just write whatever comes to your mind. Or just sit, actually, dropping into that heart-centered place and really connecting and seeing what comes up from that place. And then, of course, one of the practices that I have is doing yoga. So there's a sort of a natural connection. Well, I say natural. Many people go to yoga just for the workout, for the exercise. That's just something that I do. I know I have a friend, I think I've mentioned this before, and she does gardening. And that's sort of her physical and her mental way of connecting her heart and her body with her mind. And I love that. I'm really curious how you do that, how you get grounded with yourself. Another thing I wanted to talk about when we're talking about building family relationships is values. So I know there are people talking about values out there. I know Brene Brown is talking about values, coaches, and even in the workplace, we're talking about values. And when we work with the kids in the Youth Leadership Academy, it's one of the core foundational components that we talk about with the teens. And the reason is because I cannot tell you how many times I've talked to folks between the ages of 20 to 30, and sometimes older. But for some reason, I'm always shocked when the 20 to 30-year-olds come and they don't really have a connection with what their own values are. They know what their parents' values are, and they're trying to live their parents' values, but they're just not aware that they're actually their parents' values. And so we spend some time really talking about what values are and how they are really literally the foundation for how you build your metaphorical home. And your metaphorical or not metaphorical relationship with yourself. Values are how we build our relationship with ourselves. So I'll give you an example. So growing up, we always had, I can't believe I'm going to use this example. If my mom sees this video, she's so all right, I'm telling you guys this, but don't tell anybody, okay? That's Poe. He's expressing his disgust with me, sharing this secret with you. So growing up, my dad always talked about being honest, okay? It was one of our family values that we talked about. And I remember as a little girl, sometimes my dad would bring me home prizes from work. And what I did not know and didn't realize as a little girl was that some of these prizes he was bringing home from work were actually things that he would say fell off the back of a truck. And I didn't know what that meant until later on in life. And I was sort of reflecting back on my values. And what I realized is that there was a conflict between, being honest and not stealing, being authentic with this, except for, when dad does it, or except for when we don't honor that value, right? So there was something that was getting stepped on. And even though I didn't fully understand it, I got it on some level. And so I'm using this example, I guess I'm using this example because it's so critical to align with exactly what my values are and be really transparent when I'm building a relationship with myself, that I actually am honoring them. That I am honoring my agreements as best as I can. And when I'm not, I'm clear about that. And I'm clean with it. And I clean it up with myself. And once I do all of that, right, I get clear about what my values are, I honor my values, then I can go out and start creating relationships with other, right? From this place of groundedness, from this place of clarity around my values, from this place of mind, heart, body connection, right? From this place of awareness of what my blind spots are. And at least an awareness, so I can have clarity. I'm always going to have blind spots. That's fine, right? I'm always going to step on my values. It's always going to happen, right? It's a balance of what I'm honoring and what I'm not. And there's this deep connectedness with myself. When I'm so grounded in myself, then I can have clear, authentic, grounded, beautiful relationships outside of me. One, by modeling it, right? Because you're asking, well, great, Darla, but you're talking about building relationships out there with other people. How? Right? First, by modeling it, right? My kids, let's use kids for example, they are always watching what I'm doing. My story about my dad was a wonderful person and has passed away, and please don't judge him. That story, he did the best he could with what he had. He grew up on the streets. He's a wonderful human being. And he has passed, and that's part of why I can share this with you. And like, I was watching him. I got it on some level. And on some level, that created confusion for me with my values. Just by him modeling it, nothing else. So for you, for all of us, modeling it, modeling these things that we just talked about, and then talking about how to create it, how to build it. It's conversations, it's communication, It's collaboration with other. And when I mean other, it could be other as in my partner, my children, my coworkers, my sister, any of my siblings, actually. And it's not just one conversation, you guys. Building relationships is not one conversation. It's many, many conversations. It's getting clarity and listening to one another about what one another wants and needs, and what the expectations are. It's creating agreements. That's really what it is. It starts with myself, building a relationship with myself. So get grounded, get into your values, dig into your values, spend some time thinking about what your values are this week. Post in the comments below. Whatever questions you have, post them below. Thank you so much. And have an amazing week and an amazing month of thankfulness. Thanks for joining, and I'll see you next time. Bye.